Hey guys, what's up? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/eggs show. That's EGGSSHOW. Audible has more than 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or just about any device you can imagine. As Eggs listeners, you can download a free audiobook today by visiting audibletrial.com/eggs show.
Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, 1 star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs at 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Ryan, and he's Mike, as always, and welcome to Eggs. So today we're doing kind of a just little catch-up session, I guess. So, normally we would have a guest on or something. This week we don't have anybody on the calendar. So we thought it might be cool to sit down and do a quick catch-up session and just get everybody up to speed on what's going on these days. And in fact, right now, it's the show so nice you've heard it twice.
Yeah.
So because we're picking up our audio feed. So sorry about that. We're super pro, I promise. So anyway, so today we just wanted to kind of sit down, get together. There's been a bunch going on in our lives over the last few months, actually, because it's been
Feels like a few years.
Yeah, it's been some time really since we did a show like this that was just you and me. And so we thought this would be a cool thing to do, just sit down and do this. And, truth be told, we need something to publish later today.
Right.
So it's important that we did this. We did have a couple guests scheduled for this week, and unfortunately we had to bump them so that we could do some other things that we will actually get into a little bit on the show, because it's kind of exciting. And it does sound a little bit ridiculous when you hear it because it involves a princess, and I know we don't look like the princess type, but it's true. So maybe Mike, you want to tell us what's going on and how come we had to rebook because of you?
Well, so Tuesday we had 3 sessions lined up, or 2 or 3, and last minute on Monday night I got a text message from a friend saying, "Hey, I need a hand with some stuff." And I'm like, okay, what do we got? And supposedly the Princess of Norway was in town visiting, doing some speeches and lectures and stuff like that. And he wanted someone that could capture the video and record the audio. And I told him, yeah, I can do it on Monday, but Tuesday I'm all booked up, so sorry. And then he made it worth my while. So we rescheduled, and that's why we're doing this now with just the two of us.
Yeah,
so.
no, well, and it's awesome. We do have some exciting guests coming up, so I'm looking forward to having these guys on. And until they've actually formally rescheduled, I won't say who they are, but it will be really cool. Both of them are great guests, so we're looking forward to having them on. But yeah, truth be told, they were bumped by the Princess of Norway.
Yeah,
and
one guy actually replied, "Really, you kicking me out for the Princess of Norway?"
Yeah, right. I mean, it sounds like the worst excuse of all time.
I just told him the truth, and I was like, the Princess of Norway's coming to town, instead of trying to make up something fake, I just told him what it is,
Right.
and he's like, "Yeah, that's a real good excuse."
Yeah, no, it's true. The reality sounded more fantastical than some lie we could have come up with to push this thing off. And so anyway, so that was really cool. So cool opportunity. The princess came to town. She was doing a bunch of speaking and philanthropic things while she was here in Salt Lake. And Mike was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to go listen to her speak and do all this stuff, and videotape the sessions and all that. So
it was actually a really good experience. It was quite interesting to me. She came and toured a couple of schools here in Salt Lake, looking at the education program, looking at what Salt Lake is doing for getting a sustainable future and getting off of I'm drawing a blank, but
definitely getting off of something, whatever it might be.
Power and getting a clean.
Oh, got it. Like
transportation,
solar,
and all that stuff.
Public transport. Yeah, because actually, I mean, for being this little sleepy mountain town here in Salt Lake, like we're one of the most polluted cities in the country, which is kind of insane.
Just because of the
way that it's geography, really.
Yeah.
But so years and years ago, they built a bunch of like oil refineries, and I mean, there's a lot of traffic here and stuff like that. The valley has outgrown itself basically, and because of the shape of the valley and the way the mountains are here, for anybody who's familiar, there's the Wasatch Mountain Range runs through town. And so, so we've got these really huge mountains, and what happens is all this air pollution gets kicked up and then sort of settles up against this mountain, and so we get what they call the inversion, because they don't want to just call it horrible air pollution. and so we end up on every list every year for having the worst air pollution, although everybody associates Salt Lake with being this like pretty little mountain town.
Yeah, well, it was kind of neat too, because like the mayor of Salt Lake was there, a few other people were there, and I was able to talk with her for a little bit, and she's actually, I think it's some really fast deadline to get the city off of.
The mayor's working really hard, and actually the city itself is putting a lot of resources behind all that stuff, trying to get us in a better situation and quickly. They're trying to do a lot of work with the public transit, but a lot of cities out here, I mean, we're not like Europe. We weren't built with public transit in mind, especially out here in the West. And, to go back and put it in now is proving to be a challenge.
Seattle is a prime example of that. They built the entire city up with no thought of doing any type of, subway or transportation thing. And back when New York and everyone was investing in that in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they could do it then because a lot of the stuff was in play. Buildings weren't built. They could actually get the infrastructure kind of done.
Well,
now Seattle's trying to do it, and they can't.
And those sort of cities on the East Coast, like New York and places like that, were people from Europe who had just come to the States, and so they already had concepts of public transport and moving people around, and we just don't.
Yeah.
Out here in the West and Pioneer Land, it was, everybody was able to spread out and take up all the land they needed and things like that, and so there wasn't much thought put to public transport. And then as the communities grew, it became a problem that there wasn't much.
Yeah.
And so Salt Lake has a pretty decent like bus system, but like our train system needs a lot of work, and they're getting there, but it's a hard process, or a complicated process.
Yeah, one of the places we went to and toured was a school called Roots, and I think it's alternative school is not the best way to describe it, but it is. It's more it's designed for kids that don't really fit in the public school system. And what they do is they come in and they teach at a slower pace. They work with them one-on-one. The school is amazing. Like, I haven't seen anything like that ever in a school system.
Yeah.
They have a full-on farm. They raise goats. They raise pigs. Awesome. They've got 3 or 4 beehives for pollinating the plants on their farm. And it's an actual class that the kids can take, and they learn how to grow stuff, they even, it sounds weird, but they even let the kids castrate the goats.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a good time.
They really get hands on there, and it's really kind of neat to me to see something like that in an urban environment like that. They use the meat from the pigs that they raise and put it back into the food program at the school.
Oh, that's awesome.
So they grow their own vegetables. They raise their own meat. The kids are all hands-on with it. It's really quite amazing. And
Yeah, it sounds super cool.
Yeah.
Well, and it's in one of the rougher parts of Salt Lake. It's sort of on over in an area called West Valley, and it's a little bit rougher over there. And so yeah, having a school with all those opportunities and that type of community, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And so,
Well,
but the princess spoke over there, right?
Yeah, she spoke. She toured the school, wanted to see kind of what Roots was all about, and just for, maybe she can take some stuff back to Norway and implement it there. But it's just really cool to me to see something like that out there. As the kids were talking to her, one of the things that stood out for her was the fact that the kids were saying that, like, in the normal public school system, they were just another number, another person walking down the halls. The teacher and the administration staff didn't really know them as a person. And at this school, they feel loved, they feel needed and supported. And for someone who's had kind of a rough upbringing, that's really key and crucial for them. And I just really appreciate that. So shout out to Roots. And yeah.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Well, and I think it's really a cool situation, and really cool that the princess was able to come out and speak to those people and learn a little bit about that system, and whatever she can take back to Europe with her, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure any contribution we can make is worthwhile.
Well, I guess Norway is about the size of Utah, same population, roughly about 5 million people there. Like size-wise, it's about the same as well. So it's a smaller, country,
Right.
but same kind of.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the more you can go around and learn. I worked on a project one time for a company out in Barcelona that was doing smart city technology, and they were looking at different ways of moving people around. Like nowadays, everybody sees the rent-a-bikes or the rent-a-scooters and that kind of stuff.
Which actually, side tangent. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but that was the thing, is they were trying to share their information. Barcelona is a really advanced smart city in that sense. Public transport, they've really got on lock. They've got the train systems and the bike systems and all this stuff there. And this guy that I was working with was developing those systems. And so he had come to Atlanta to share sort of Europe's perspective on public transit. And so I think this is sort of one of those outreach type programs where she's coming from Norway to learn what she can about other places.
Yeah.
And then share whatever Norway's doing right.
So my tangent on the scooters is I hate them. I think they're the worst thing ever, because essentially you're getting any random person on this machine that goes 15, 20 miles an hour, and they do it on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And no one will say, "Hey, I'm right behind you. Don't step to the right because I'll take you out."
Right.
I've had so many near misses. They're annoying.
Yeah.
And-
No, it's true. And I've used them a couple times just to get between one of the working spaces I work at and the studio and back and forth and stuff. And they're pretty fun.
Yeah.
But I'm just as guilty of doing the thing on the sidewalk. I mean, they've got some bike lanes in the city, but not everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and
so it sometimes doesn't feel that safe to be out in the street.
no, dude, the streets are horrible.
But I think
here.
part of it too, I mean, they're kind of hard to ride. Like, I don't know if you've ridden one, but if you've never ridden like a Razor scooter or something, they're kind of hard to ride.
A little wobbly.
Well, yeah, they're a little wobbly. They're kind of small frame, stuff like that. And like, I'm a bigger guy. And so for me, it's a little like shaky,
You need the 4-wheel version.
Yeah,
the
right.
off-road tires.
Yeah, they should do the same thing, but with like ATVs or something.
Full-on suspension.
So, but yeah, I mean, I had one. I will say, the time to ride them is not in the winter. I took one time. I mean, it wasn't really winter.
Hit
I
a
guess it was like
patch of
March or
ice and
something.
just
It was
eat
when
it.
Silicon Slopes was over here.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
I had to go back and forth between this studio and over to Kiln, the co-working space I was at that day. And I did just that. I was out in the street, but I hit a patch of ice and like lost the back end.
Woo!
And about ate it. And luckily I didn't, but it was pretty sketch. And so now I just stay on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
So
Well,
and,
at least you're the
dodge
type of
people.
person that if you're coming up behind someone, you're going to say something.
Yeah.
You're not just a 12-year-old that's going to scream by me and miss me by 4 inches and make me want to kill someone.
Yeah, it's true. So it's pretty crazy. So
Your life
Yeah.
has been crazy too.
yeah, there's a bunch going on right now. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Lots of travel, things like that. I guess I can talk about it. I just got back from Santa Monica. I went down to meet Egg Show alumni Chris Doe.
Nice.
Down there, and
We will actually go back a little bit further because you went to the conference.
Oh God, have we not talked since Creative South?
I don't think we've talked.
Oh, okay. So one of the things for anybody who listened to this show early on, we talked all the time about this design conference called Weapons of Mass Creation Fest, and we talked about it. A lot of our initial guests and stuff were people that I had met out at that conference. It's a conference for designers. But all the people out there kept telling me about this one called Creative South. It's this, event that takes place in Georgia that you've just, everybody was saying, you got to go check it out. This is the one, go see this thing. And so I went down. This year was the first time I've been there, despite having been asked to come for several years. And when I got out there, I found out, I had already bought my ticket and everything, but later, after having bought my ticket, I found out or discovered that Egg Show alumni Chris Doe was the keynote at the event that this year.
I doubt it. You probably stalked his personal calendar. It's like, oh, he's going to be there. I'm going.
Yeah, no, it was a super happy coincidence because I love Chris. He's great, and I wanted to go spend some time and hear what he had to say. So it worked out pretty great. Well, when we got out there, I was the only face he knew. And so we actually kind of hit it off and ended up spending most of the week together. And, so we spent a lot of time preparing for his talk and listening to the other people talk and just kind of going back and forth. It was this really great experience. The conference itself is really cool. I was able to reunite with a bunch of old people, Egg Show alumni and things like that. Jason Frostholm was there, who's been on this show. Will Truran was out there. He's been on this show as well.
Nice.
And so it was really cool to catch up with those dudes and just see what's new and what's happening in their life and see what's changed since I met them. I guess it's been about 3 years ago now when I met them out in Cleveland.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, it's crazy how time flies. Or maybe just 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
No, it's 3 because you went the year before and then we started the podcast.
Yeah, I guess that's right. So, 3 years.
Because we're 2 years into the podcast now.
Yeah, it's nuts. So anyway, I went out there and I was able to catch up with those dudes, and that was a lot of fun. I got to spend all this time with Chris. We met some really cool new people out there, some of whom will end up on this show. Diane Gibbs, I'm looking at you. Ray Torres also, we'll probably have you on. She does some really cool stuff too. So we'll probably get all these people on the show at some point. But anyway, really cool event. Lots of cool people there. Cool first experience, though. Well, I guess not cool, a terrifying first experience for me while I was out there. On the day we were set to leave, which was
terrifying. It was fun.
Which was a Sunday. We were getting ready to leave. I had to drive back to Atlanta to catch my flight. This is in a little town called Columbus, Georgia, and a bunch of the people that we knew, Chris Doe and other people included, were getting ready to take off, and all of a sudden I'm at the hotel packing, getting ready, and I get what sounds like an Amber Alert on my cell phone. And turns out it was not an Amber Alert, but rather it was a tornado warning. And so apparently right there in Columbus, there had been a tornado touchdown and some others in the area. And it was the same weekend as the Masters out in Georgia. So anybody paying attention saw the tornadoes rip through the Masters too, and through Atlanta and through all these places over there. So I was directly impacted by all that stuff. So I caught up. I hit up Chris and I sent him a screen grab of my screen that said "Tornado warning, seek shelter immediately." And of course he's like, "Whoa!" He's a California guy, so he was like, "I'm not used to this stuff." And so
and your brilliant idea is like, "Hey, you want to ride?
Yeah,
let's drive in this stuff."
Yeah, well, and so I hit him up and I sent him this screen grab. My wife back home, I texted her and said, "Oh, look, just my luck. I'm trying to get out of town and here's this, And so she sent me this screen grab of a weather forecast, and it was like the state of Georgia, and it was like 75% covered in tornado icons. And I was like, oh God, we're not getting out of here. So anyway, it was dumping rain, like more rain than I've ever seen. Like it was crazy amounts of rain, just buckets. And I hit up Chris and this girl, Ray, who'd been spending a lot of time with, and I was like, okay, hey, tornado warning. What are you guys doing? And so we decided to regroup at one of the hotels, and we got together and got talking. And I was like, well, I have to drive to Atlanta anyway to get out of town. Both of them were flying out of Columbus, but connecting in Atlanta and then going on to California, and she lives in Vermont. So they were, going to their places from Atlanta. So I suggested to them, I was like, well, for me personally, I wouldn't feel all that stoked to be in like a little, puddle jumper airplane going from Columbus's little tiny airport to Atlanta.
How long's the drive?
It's a 2-hour drive or like an hour and 40 minutes or something.
It's not bad.
And so I was like, hey, I've got a rental car. I've got plenty of space. Do you guys just want to ride with me so that you don't have to take your little turboprop from Columbus to Atlanta just because it's, who knows what's going to go on, right?
Yeah.
The weather was sketch at best. And so we started, so we got talking, and ultimately they were like, okay, yeah, I think, we'd feel more safe in the car. And so we basically had this little hour and 40-minute drive together where we just got to rap and catch up and get to know each other and everything. And it turned into this really cool experience. Well, we all get to the airport in Atlanta, and of course, on both Ray and Chris's phone, it pops up that their flights had been canceled in Columbus. So if they hadn't come with me, they wouldn't have caught their flight anyway.
Well, that's awesome.
And so that worked out pretty darn good. And so our gamble, made sense and was worth it. Of course, there were cars off the road the whole drive. I mean, it was still pretty Armageddon looking, but despite the beautiful territory.
See, I never understand that. I mean, like middle of the hurricane or tornado watch. Let's leave the car and walk.
Yeah, or just pull over to the side of the road and wait it out or whatever. Don't keep going at 75 miles an hour through the freeway, or whatever when the wind's blowing through.
Yeah.
Let's relax. I mean, there were cars flipped over and upside down and out in the trees, and
wow.
I mean, they were everywhere.
Wow.
So it was pretty nuts. But anyway, so we ended up, we got to the airport. And one of the funny things that happened, so like I said, this was the weekend of the Masters. And so everybody was also leaving the Masters. And so like when I had arrived, like literally every rental car was gone. The airport was packed, and same thing, trying to leave. So there was the storms, so there were delays everywhere. And everybody trying to leave from the Masters. And, our little group trying to leave. And so we got there and it was just a cluster, a million people everywhere. So we show up and I was already checked in and checked through because I was leaving from Atlanta, but the other two had skipped their flights in Columbus. So we went to the counter at the Delta counter in Atlanta, and Chris and Ray sort of verified that they had, that they were good to go. They had, their other flight had been canceled, but they got here in time for their flight. They wanted to, get on their plane. So we verified that was good to go. Well, so we start going over and we get into the security lines, and, Chris and I were like TSA pre or whatever. So we went down one line and Ray went through another line because she didn't have that. And when she got up there, for some reason, her phone wouldn't load a boarding pass. She couldn't figure it out. She's like,
she didn't check in time.
It's not working. Well, Chris, though, was able to pull up a boarding pass, and he was able to get through security and everything. Well, come to find out, because we all went up to the Delta Lounge, like I have a membership at the Delta Lounge, and so we went and hung out together up in the lounge, and we just sat there, and then, when it was time to leave, because we all left about the same time, everybody separated and went to their gates. Well, I got down there and I got on the plane, no problem. When both Chris and Ray got to their flight, they found out that Delta had dropped them out of the system because they didn't show up for their first flight.
Oh,
and so
man.
because
So
they
they
hadn't showed
sold
up,
their
they just
seats?
assumed they were gone, and they gave their seats away.
That's messed
And
up.
so poor Chris and Ray both ended up getting rescheduled onto different flights. And, it was just a nightmare for those
That
guys.
sucks.
They ended up leaving about the same time I did, and I was supposed to be the latest one leaving. So it was kind of just a mess. I got a text from Chris as I was getting ready to go. I was like, dude, do you want to go back into the lounge? I was like, I'll walk you into the lounge, because he had to sit there for an extra couple hours. And he was going from, East Coast all the way to the West Coast.
Yeah.
I was coming all the way to Utah, so it's still a pretty long flight. But he had an even longer flight. And so ultimately, it all worked out. Everything was fine. Everybody was safe and everything, but it was kind of a cluster. So, but all said, the Creative South experience was amazing. I've already bought my ticket to go next year.
Nice.
They have like a promo price or whatever, for people who attended this year if they want to go next year and buy it sort of sight unseen. Next year's also their 10-year anniversary, so it's kind of a big, family reunion, so to speak.
Sure.
Kind of big get-together event.
Do you think they'll let me come as your assistant?
Yeah,
and I'll
for
just
sure.
kind of, carry your laptop and.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, anybody will carry my luggage, I'll take it. So anyway, so that was Creative South. So anyway, on the premise or on the basis of the relationship that I built with Chris while I was out there, fast forward to just a week ago, he was putting together an event down at his place, the Future, down in Santa Monica, the same place we had recorded our podcast with him. And he was having a guy down there. His name's Johnny Earl. Johnny Earl is the CEO and founder of a company called Johnny Cupcakes, which is like a clothing brand, apparel brand, and and I love them. I think they're great.
Well, his story is kind of cool because he used to go to like Warped Tour and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he used to sell his clothing out of a ice cream truck, right? Or is that?
Yeah, no, this guy does, he was in a band, and so he started out making band merch.
Okay.
And it eventually evolved into this brand, and he actually left his band to pursue Johnny Cupcakes.
I must be thinking of another company that does that.
Yeah, well, this is kind of in line with that because basically his shops, like his Johnny Cupcake stores, they basically look like bakeries. And so he jokes that his whole rap is selling T-shirts to hungry people because he just convinces people. They all think it's a bakery. They come in for a cupcake. He doesn't sell cupcakes. He sells T-shirts with pictures of cupcakes on them.
So they're all disappointed but happy at the same time.
Yeah, right. So, but they have this shirt that I just loved and I fell in love with like years ago that has a slogan on it that says, do more of what makes you happy. And I just have always liked that message. I felt like it's kind of a good way to live life, try not to spend too much time doing the things you don't like and spend more time doing the things you do. And, and I sort of heard that message at the right point in my life where it was impactful. And for me, it became a thing. And so, I mean...
He has a tattoo now. It's great.
Yeah, it's right on my butt cheek. No, I don't have that tattoo. Although I should go get that tattoo because I do believe in it. So, but I mean, I own the T-shirt in about 6 different colorways. I have, different, stickers and magnets and stuff with this logo all over the place. And for me, it was something that I thought I really liked. And so I bought into Johnny Cupcakes early. And so out at the Future, they had this event with Johnny Cupcakes, aka Johnny Earl, out there. And so I went out to Santa Monica to go to this event and, go spend some more time, get a little bit more face time with Chris Do, but also have the opportunity to meet Johnny Cupcakes, who I love. And so, and it turned into a really great thing. I mean, basically I was able to hook up with Chris early and spend most of the day with him. And then like when Johnny showed up, I was already there. So I got to meet Johnny, get some good one-on-one time. He did a 2-hour live streamed session that you can watch on YouTube on the Futures channel. And that's The Future, Futur, no E. And so you can watch the Future session with Johnny Earl, and that was the event I was attending. You can actually see me in the front row if you pay close attention.
Oh, it's right.
But I was told that somebody told me I looked really bored, so I feel bad because I wasn't bored at all. I was really enjoying it, but apparently the look on my face was not indicative of that. And so anyway, so that was really cool. And then afterwards, after everybody cleared out, I got to hang around with Chris and Johnny for a little while. While they had dinner, and we, sort of just wrapped and got to kind of know each other on a personal level. It was really, it was a cool opportunity, and I'm glad I went, even though it was kind of a pain in the butt for a quick overnighter. I flew down at noon on Monday and came home at 4 on Tuesday. So
then recorded a podcast the next morning,
right?
I think.
And so so it was a pretty quick turn kind of thing. And so, but totally worth it. Totally excited to go. It sounds like we're working on a thing that maybe I'll be able to collaborate with Johnny Cupcakes on a thing, and it should be pretty cool. So I can't talk about it too much here because I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But I will show you, Mike, when we're off the air.
Okay.
So, but anyway, so that was really cool and a fun thing to do. Of course, all this in the midst of we've just bought a house also.
Yeah.
So we've been, stressed out to the max trying to figure out this move. It's basically turned into about a 4-week adventure in moving. We signed on it or closed on the house a couple weeks ago and have since been moving little by little. And then, we're just turning on every service and turning on, we had to have the carpets cleaned. We had some paint work done. Furniture delivered, yard implements delivered. I was actually pretty stoked. I got a riding lawnmower, so that's exciting. So I can't wait to ride that thing around. And so anyway, really cool stuff. And we're spending just boatloads of money. It's making me like ill. And so I've got to, I'm looking forward to getting in and settled and stopping with all the madness. But anyway, it's been good, and hopefully, the house is great. The place, everything's good. So I think it'll be a great place for our family and everything. But so all this flying off to Santa Monica, all this other stuff has been sort of fueled by having to hurry up and be back so I could be here in time for the carpet guy, or I can go and be back in time for the furniture
even like
guy.
right now, we've
Yeah.
got to cut this short so you can get back for the furniture.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're rocking out a show right now. I've got the Lowe's guy is coming back for the mower they left me, because the one they brought me was like a display unit that had sat outside. And so it rained and it went through the engine and was like leaking rust out the bottom.
Awesome.
I was like, when, these mowers are kind of expensive. I was like, I'll keep it covered. I'll put it in the garage, whatever. And they're like bringing me one that's already
Rusted.
outdoored and damaged, let me do the damage to the thing, Like, don't bring me one that's in bad shape. So anyway, their manager's fixing it, and they're trying to bring me a new one today. So they're replacing that one later today, and then we have some furniture showing up today. So we went from having one family room to having 3. So we had to buy some couches and stuff. So good times are to be had for sure. So, but this is the last of the deliveries. All the paint is done, the carpet's done, everything's done. So we'll be able to start moving in, except that I'm leaving to St. Louis tomorrow and going to be gone for another week. And so needless to say, our move is being delayed by another 5 days. And so we get back from St. Louis at like 4:00 or something next Wednesday, the 5th. And the movers show up to move us out on the 6th of June.
Dang.
And so, it's just rapid fire stuff coming in. And it's a ball. So anyway, looking forward to being through with all this stuff and being able to just settle, maybe have a barbecue, have some people over to sort of celebrate and see if we can actually enjoy the fact that we bought a new house, because right now it's a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
good
can
times.
relate.
Well, yeah, in your land, you've been still working on different. Your rock wall's done, right? But you're
Yep.
working on flagstone stuff now.
So, so that's a whole nother nightmare. But yeah, flagstone patio, and we're doing a flagstone walkway in front of the rock wall, and then another patio at the base of the stairs, and then the walkway extends to the end of the rock wall. So it's like I've got the big patio finished and half of the pathway done. But I've also noticed that part of the rock wall is I put a rock in. There's a rock about midway down on one section of the rock wall that isn't stable, and it looks like some water has caused it to kind of shift, and I'm afraid of it collapsing.
Oh no!
So, well, not like today, but 5-10 years from now.
One day,
I don't want it to be a problem. So I was gonna fix that first, but I want to do that with a bobcat. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna finish the flagstone walkway and then pour some dirt on it, and then I'll just drive the bobcat up over the top of it. And the dirt should give enough cushion and padding to where it won't leave any rubber marks on the stone and crack any of the rocks. But the flagstone patio, man, it's gorgeous, but it's a lot of work. I didn't think it would be as hard as it was. If we were doing brick or something that was, square or easy to kind of align, I would have been done a month ago. But the flagstone, imagine a 700-piece jigsaw puzzle where every piece weighs 50 to 120 pounds.
Oh, Lord.
And the hardest part about it is, okay, you get them to where they kind of fit and they're close together, and you got 4 or 5 of them in a row, but the thickness of each rock is different, so you have to level each rock individually. And that's a nightmare. You hit a lot of grinding to cut corners off and make it fit closer, because I don't want a inch and a half
too big
to
of gaps or anything.
And so it's been quite the project, and I probably got another 3 or 4 weekends worth of work to be able to finish it. But when it's done, it's going to be really nice.
Yeah. Well, and that's the joy of this stuff, right? I mean, like, I'm unfortunately not particularly handy. And so all the stuff I'm doing at the house, I'm having to hire out, which sucks because, a real man could probably sit around and do this stuff. But I mean, it's still just, it's so much work and coordination. And when the painters came out the other day, they only had to do 2 bedrooms and 1 big accent wall.
Sure.
And it was still just 10 hours of just straight painting.
For them or you?
For them.
Really?
And it's just, there were 2 guys and it took them that long. For me and my wife to do the painting, we'd have been there a month.
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy, and I can't believe how much goes into it.
Well, even just the studio, when I painted this studio, it took me probably 3 hours just to mask the walls and around the window, and then it took 3 coats of paint. So it probably took,
easily
10,
10 or 12 hours by
Yeah.
the time it was done.
So,
Yeah, it's just nuts. And I mean, I guess if I were more handy, I'd probably enjoy doing it more. I did mount some security cameras at the house yesterday. That felt pretty masculine, but that was about as good as it gets. I just I'm not good with that stuff.
Well, the thing is like, so the flagstone for me is essentially therapy for me.
Yeah, go out and break rocks.
Go
literally.
out and I don't have headphones on. I put earplugs in, and I think the whole time. So it's kind of like
Oh, see, that would be dangerous for me. I can't be allowed to think the whole time.
yeah. Well, I enjoy it. And then it's also I've been documenting the whole process, and I want to put together like a recap when it's all done. But it to me, it's kind of like this cool, one rock at a time is my thing. Like you just keep persisting, keep working.
Yeah.
When you have time, eventually it'll finish. And I think that can relate to other projects as well.
Well,
and
yeah,
other
no,
things
I
in
mean,
life.
it's a pretty great metaphor for life,
Yeah.
really. I think we're like living in a time right now where everything seems to happen overnight because of, just social media and stuff. I mean, if you just pay attention to social media, it looks like everybody's built their business overnight. Everybody is a millionaire. Everybody's got it all figured out, But I mean, the reality of the situation is everything is step by step. It is baby steps or building blocks or whatever. So this, I guess the metaphor of this, rock wall and then the flagstone and all this stuff is kind of that, right? It's laying down all this foundation so that eventually you have something to stand on.
Yeah, well, and it's also goes down to that foundation too. It's like build on a rock, build something stable, build something like the rock wall with the stone that's sliding out. That
Yep.
to me that
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
That unstable foundation, that one little bit could be the detriment of that rock wall.
Yeah.
You could leave it for now. Maybe it'd be fine, who knows? But if it slips because you decided just to be lazy and not deal with it, well, then, the outcome could be worse.
Yeah.
It could be a big portion of the wall falling apart or whatever.
Well, and you don't want to fix it with the lawn in place, and
Right.
because that's next is sod and sprinkler systems and all that stuff. So it's been a nightmare of a project.
Yeah.
I'm going on year 3 on this because I'm just doing it as I
Well,
have
yeah,
time.
of course, you're just doing it here and there when you've got time. Plus, Idaho weather doesn't exactly permit year-round work.
Well,
so-
so backstory on this is it's my parents' house, and I eventually plan on either buying it or putting it in a trust for the me and my sisters kind of thing. And so essentially all this work is sweat equity in the house, and it's been a nightmare, but for me to be able to do it myself instead of paying people, that equity just builds and builds and builds.
Well, and like you said, I mean, there's honestly something to be said. And like, I imagine, even though it's really hard work to do this stuff, I imagine at the end of the day, like you must feel some satisfaction.
Oh, yeah.
Like I did that,
Yeah.
with my hands, and yes, it hurt. And yes, it was hard, and again, just to sort of extend this metaphor about life or business or anything you want to talk about.
Well, it even goes into like my app I've been working on, like that same kind of thing. Yeah, it's been stagnant for a little bit. I've had other priorities that I'm focusing on, but I keep coming back to it. I keep working on it. And eventually one day it's
Well,
going
and
to be
it's
done.
brick by brick, and one day it'll be
Yeah.
there, and that's the thing. And I think that, if people try and think more about that as, they're developing relationships or businesses or, building a literal rock wall, I think that, if people can kind of keep that eye on the prize and continue to work through it bit by bit, even if it feels slow and even if it feels like a slog, ultimately it'll be worth doing.
Yeah. So it's almost done. I think by the end of the summer we'll have the sod laid, and then next summer I plan on putting in a brick pizza oven. That's the
That'll be awesome,
That's
though.
the reward, though. It's like I'm going to do a nice kind of. I want to do it with a grill on the side, smoker on the other side, brick pizza oven in the middle.
Full-service BBQ
We'll do that
/ pizza
because
spot.
where we're at right now.
Although I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing better than smoked pizza. You should just get the
so
smoker.
good. Well,
It's
I
the
want
best.
to have the best of both worlds because the pizza oven you can cook anything in, and not just pizza. You can cook roast. You can
Yeah,
cook.
just a big stone oven.
Yeah, it's really quite cool. And so the idea is to make that the patio, the hangout place,
Yeah.
and you can have with the pizza oven, you get the fire kind of like that. We can't have any open fires where we're at. We're on a hill where it's a huge
Sort
fire
of
hazard
in the forest that has recently burned.
Yeah.
So
and so we can't have any open flames, but if I have it enclosed in a pizza oven, I can still get the outdoor fire experience around the patio, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that would be super cool. Well, and honestly, like, I mean, my favorite kind of pizza is that sort of like real thin crust, like Italian, legit Italian, wood-fired kind of pizza. And you can make that in these stone ovens.
Yeah.
And it'd be awesome.
The plans are pretty intense, but I just built a huge rock wall and a flagstone patio. I'm sure I can handle a pizza oven.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? I mean, if you can do that, then you can do the other thing. I mean, the confidence built on doing something like that, and actually being able to assemble something and put it together. Whatever it is, whether it's an app or a rock wall. It's I think the premise or the learning from it is the same. And I think it's really valuable.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
mean, despite, just putting sweat equity in the home and obviously increasing the value of the place and all that other stuff. I mean, despite all that, just what it does for a person emotionally to go and work hard.
Yeah.
I mean, in a much smaller version of it, just as, we're talking about moving the house and all this stuff, like we spent last weekend, just one day, because we only had the U-Haul for about 6 hours, but we packed up and moved all of our storage stuff, right?
Oh, you got that done already?
Yep. So we moved all that, except for one couch. I might need to handle the couch. But
No.
fine, I'll rent it on the truck. But me and my wife spent the afternoon just moving all that stuff, and she was putting stuff that we didn't need on like Facebook Marketplace and selling it while we were there. So like, people would come and buy these things and just leave, and like it was this really cool process of loading this truck and then unloading it, and at the end, to see that garage empty, even though it was something we had to do, not something we were doing to try and improve ourselves.
Well, it's just a good feeling when it's done.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, in my work, I sit behind a computer all day. I mean, so a lot of times you don't feel that satisfied. I get a little taste of it, like when we finish a project,
format
or we
the final thing,
bounce
it down.
when I hit send or whatever, like that's the moment, right? You get that little bit of charge. But it's nothing like going out and actually working with your hands and getting something done.
Sure.
And, like as a soft guy who doesn't spend a lot of time doing that stuff, like, I mean, in this new home, I'm going to have to do a lot of that stuff. I mean, there's like a swing set in the backyard that I've got to tear out and get rid of. And, like we've been talking about pouring like a half-court basketball court back there and stuff. Like, I mean, there's going to be stuff. And I'm going to have to figure it out because I can't afford to pay everyone for everything.
Well, I can help with the concrete, and I say just get a bobcat for the day just to take the swing set down, just because it'd be fun to plow through it.
Yeah, I was hoping I could yank it. Well, because I need to go look at it, because honestly, I haven't looked at it. But
it's probably
it
something
doesn't
you could
move.
just do.
Well, it doesn't move when my oldest boy, who's 12, is swinging on it. And so I think they may have buried it like with concrete and stuff. I don't know for sure. I need to go look. But if it is in there with concrete, because I was hoping I could maybe just use this lawn tractor to yank it out. You know? But if it's in there with concrete, I might need the bobcat for the day.
No, I was being sarcastic.
So
you
I think
could
it'd be
probably
involved.
get it without it. That's what I was saying.
You
and
can-
a bobcat, you'd be doing donuts in your
Oh,
backyard.
it's awesome. Well, I remember back in the olden days when I worked for this guy named Don Aslett up in Pocatello. He's a book publisher. He sold, wrote and sold books. And they were building his world famous cleaning museum next door, but they were storing the bobcat in our book warehouse. And they had forks on it, so we could use it as a fork truck to move these pallets of books around.
Nice.
And I had so much fun screwing around with that stupid thing. I mean, we were supposed to call somebody. I probably wasn't supposed to. But back in the olden days when I was a kid, I worked at Shopco, and I had a forklift license.
Nice.
From back then. And so I'm sure it's not valid or anything anymore, but I at least had some experience in it. So, but yeah, those bobcats are a blast.
Yeah,
I always
they're
joked
fun.
that some business that I wanted to create, and I think somebody's actually done it now.
It's in Vegas.
Is I wanted to go and just build a giant sandbox, like an enormous sandbox, get like 10 acres of sandbox, and you can come rent like a, adult Tonka. You come out and you get your,
Get a D9 dozer going.
Yeah, you get the bulldozers, you get the forklifts, you get the, what's the one I was thinking? Backhoes.
Yep.
You get all this stuff, and you just go around and just dig dirt and build motorcycle ramps, like that kind of thing. Because it just something about that, sort of is the adult version of something I would have loved as a kid.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Actually, we're going to need a bobcat for putting the lawn in and grading it and all that stuff. You should bring the kids out and let them play around in it.
It's so much fun, that heavy equipment. Yeah, no, my oldest son is looking forward to driving this lawn tractor around too.
Yeah.
So although, I don't know, it may prove to be too difficult to do this yard with a lawn tractor. It's just so big that I think to do it with a mower, you would spend all weekend working in the yard, and I don't have any time or interest for that. And so so I'm going to try it with the tractor. If it doesn't work, I will return the tractor, and we'll just employ the Boy Scouts or whoever's nearby, and just pay them for the summer. Because I mean, I have boys, they could do it, but I mean, they have sports and stuff on the weekends, and we're never home. Yeah. And that was one of the biggest problems at our last home. Was just we would lose our whole weekend doing yard maintenance and things like that, and just we'd rather be traveling or whatever.
So I had kind of a weird upbringing. My dad was a carpenter and worked construction, did all sorts of stuff, and one of his things that he loved to do was buy and flip homes. And instead of just buying and flipping them, he would buy them. We would move into them and live there for a year and remodel them while we're living there. So I have kind of a unique childhood because, you know, when most 10, 12-year-old kids were doing soccer like your kids, I'm doing sheetrock and taping and mudding and running electrical and doing landscaping. And this is probably the third or fourth yard I've landscaped.
Yeah.
And so it's a blessing in disguise, but at the same time,
well, it's awesome because to have those skills, like I'm so envious of people who are just good like this. My brother-in-law is like this too. He can just build stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really good at demolition. I can do that part pretty well. And actually, I'm not bad at like framing up stuff, like framing a wall or hanging drywall and stuff like that. I'm pretty good at that. The finishing, I'm not very good at. And so, because I did a bunch of work in my mom's basement years ago, and I hung a bunch of drywall and finished out her basement. But the, when it came to texturing and painting and just all that finish work, I'm no good.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah, I don't know.
Anything else we're missing?
Yeah, no.
Podcasting.
Yeah.
We're doing a couple of cool things. And I don't know how in depth you want to go with it, but
yeah, I think we can talk a little bit about it anyway. So one of the developments that's happened just over the course of doing this show has been people being interested in what we're doing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And what's that has evolved into sort of the working title of Eggs Podcast Consultancy, where we are helping people craft their shows and design their programs, and then actually they can come here and use our studio. This studio is available for rent if you're in Salt Lake. Also, we can facilitate remote call-in and things like that if people wanted to try and use our studio long distance.
Or even remote, say you've got a presentation going on at another location, we can bring it.
Yeah, if you want to do podcasting from somewhere. You may have noticed if you're watching the live stream that we also live stream now, and that's something that's kind of it seems kind of commonplace or normal for us, but for a lot of people that's kind of a bridge too far and they don't know how to do it. And so we've developed our sort of consulting wing where we're helping people develop their shows and produce programs. And, we are looking for people who are interested in getting a show off the ground but haven't for one reason or another. A lot of times it's technical issues or timing issues and things like that. And we figured out how to address a number of those kinds of problems. I mean, both Mike and I have incredibly busy schedules. We're coming and going all the time, and we still make time to do this. Even though if you look at the live stream, it looks like we're in two different rooms. We are actually here together today. We've done the show from all over the planet, literally, from Spain to Hawaii to everywhere. And so, we've sort of jumped a lot of the hoops, or we solved a lot of the problems that young podcasters or people trying to get into the business don't know how to overcome. And so we found that our knowledge is actually pretty valuable. And so we've got a bunch of shows that we're going to start working with that will hopefully be coming in the not too distant future. We're also developing presently our podcast network so we can house a few more shows under the Eggs umbrella. So if you have a show that you'd be interested in sharing or having considered for appearing on the network, we'd be happy to talk to you and see if there's some kind of relationship we could work out. Also, we're developing sort of an ad platform and some other things. And lots of things happening here in Eggsland. And to be perfectly honest, none of it would happen if it wasn't for you guys, all the people who are listening and contributing to the show.
Dude,
offering information, that kind of stuff. I mean, the relationships we're crafting as a result of this show are bearing awesome fruit. And
I would say that the relationships are the number one reason to do a podcast.
Yeah, it's incredible.
The people you meet, the people you interact with.
Well,
It's
and that's
key.
just it. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody who's paying any attention to like this show, for example,
I kicked it with the Princess of Norway yesterday.
yeah, and
directly
that's
resulted
because
from
we
this
have this
podcast.
podcast studio. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's nuts. And yeah, I mean, I saw your selfie with the mayor of Salt Lake, and I mean, you're in a room full of the who's of the valley, and I mean, real movers and shakers. You know, the family that owns the Jazz was there. The Utah Jazz, the NBA team. I mean, real important people in this community, and it's all fruit of this show. So for anybody who's thinking of doing a show but has any doubts, I mean, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just do it, because it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, we've turned to, a lot of networking opportunities. We've made some great friendships. We've, developed a number of different things all through the folks
And
that we
there's
have
so
had
many
on the show.
Matches in the fire right now, and any one of them could turn into something that's just
Yeah, it's
huge.
incredible. And and it works because of listeners tuning in. Mike posted yesterday or, a couple days ago, whenever it was, on LinkedIn, a sort of a demographic map of people who listen to our show. And it's people from all over the planet. And I mean, God knows how people are finding us. I don't know if they're American people in other countries, or I don't know what's going on. But, I mean, you can look at our sort of geographic, reach, and we're all over the planet. And it's really interesting. It's cool to see that. In fact, one interesting note, 60% of our audience, or 60% of our listeners overall, have come from the United States. The other 40% are somewhere else.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah, Germany's our second place country, and the UK is our third, which is really, I mean, it's totally interesting.
We don't even know anyone in Germany.
Yeah, I have no idea what the reach is, and I would love to find out. So, hey, Mr. German guy, Hair, whomever, if you're listening to the show, I mean, reach out, man. We want to hear from you, because we want to know how you know about us and why do you care.
Yeah.
And it's not one-time listening. They're listening over and over and over again, and they're downloading multiple episodes. So I know it's not just like a bot or something. I mean, there's something going on, and so it's really cool to look at the numbers each week and see how things spike and different times of day that things are going. We happen to be most active, or we perform best between 1 and 2 p.m. I don't know why. That means people maybe are listening to us at lunch, on lunch breaks or something. Or, I mean, who knows? It's really, really cool, really interesting, and just sort of the whole business of podcasting, for me anyways, is really intriguing and interesting. And for anybody thinking about it, I would dive in with both feet.
Yep.
In addition to, sort of our consulting practice, I mean, just shoot us an email. If you have questions, we're happy to just talk to you.
Yeah.
Anything we can do. There are podcasters of, all kinds that have different advice and have different things, but we're happy to share the eggs story and how that's worked for us. I mean, obviously we have a lot of specific expertise in production and marketing, and
it's kind of
things
we have
like that.
a unique
We have a
situation.
unique set.
Yeah, just because of my skill set and your skill set.
Yeah. But that does lead to a unique perspective on how to do podcasting and how to do that thing, and how we have overcome some of the challenges that have come, technological problems and booking problems and all these other things that happen as par for the course in running a podcast.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. So if you're interested in a larger relationship, a consulting type relationship, feel free to reach out to us. You can do so through the website, or, catch us on, DM us on Instagram or Twitter or wherever. And if you just have questions or concerns or whatever, feel free to post them here with this video, leave comments, whatever you want, and let's talk. Let's just build relationships, because I think ultimately
That's what it comes down to.
yeah, I mean,
is
that's
the relationships.
the whole thing, and the more people, the merrier. They say something like there's 500,000 different podcasts out there nowadays, and maybe it's a bigger number than that now. I mean, there are a lot of people doing it. Maybe not everybody is, they're not all created equal, obviously, but there is an infinite amount of opportunity for anybody that wants to go out there and develop a voice to have one.
Yep.
And I think it's a really cool time to be a part of that scene. I think, in the coming years, as technology catches up to podcasting and it becomes more and more available in cars and other places, it's going to be a really important platform to be a part of. It's basically the new radio.
Yeah.
And but it's on demand. It's like TiVo. You know,
Which
so
is insane. Like, could you imagine this 5 years ago?
Yeah,
Even
no.
10 years ago?
it's bonkers.
Like,
And,
Sirius satellite radio was the closest thing.
Yeah.
And that was just you tune in when you're in your car and you get what you get.
Yeah.
Now you can get it on demand whenever you want.
Yep. And I mean, and just to think that we're sitting in our humble little studio in Salt Lake City, which isn't that humble, actually. We have really nice stuff here. but you know, we're sitting here at our studio and we're able to broadcast to the world just from here. We just sit down and flip a few switches and we're in business.
Well, and people
It's,
can do that with
pretty
their
amazing.
phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just a
true.
matter of what level of professional look you're going for.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
There's all
so.
levels. And we talk about that in our consulting. We're also happy to just, you know, like we said, just rap. So shoot us a note if you have any thoughts.
You can
or
rap. I
interest or
suck
whatever.
at it. I might be able to beatbox or something, but
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can't rap without a beat. So, you know, you need the both. So, so cool. All right. Well, I think that probably is a good place to wrap. You know, interesting stuff going on. We've had lots of great guests recently. If you haven't been listening to the show, or if you are a little bit behind, we've got some really interesting folks who've been on recently. Mark Dowis, the CEO of Quiet
really
Light Brokerage,
enjoyed
was
that
here last week.
conversation.
Really interesting conversation. Lots of good stuff there. Prady Tiwari the week before.
Another great
You know,
conversation.
really great guy, great business guy out of Boston, and runs a company called Azoth, which is like a supplement company. And just before her, Stormy Simon, or just before him, Stormy Simon,
President of Overstock.
former president of Overstock.com, and now a big cannabis advocate. We also had professional soccer player on a few weeks ago and stuff like that. Like, we've got some really interesting guests. Definitely go back and take a look at the catalog and see if you can find things that resonate for you.
Next week or the week after, we have a LinkedIn expert that wrote a book on it. He's coming on, and then we've got a actual artist from Seattle named Keegan Hall. Look him up.
Incredible artist. If you follow him on Instagram, along with the other 100,000 people that do.
Yeah.
And his work's incredible. It just, I mean, photorealistic pencil work and stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I think that'll be a cool discussion to talk about his art background versus your art background and how they kind of relate.
Yeah, totally different. You know, like going for the fine art direction versus sort of the commercial art direction. It's really cool. I'm looking forward to that conversation and just seeing what it's like to be an artist in today's time.
Yeah.
Because it's totally different than being the starving artist of the 60s. You know,
Yeah.
now you can build fame and reputation and all this stuff through social media platforms and other places that just didn't exist before. So the life of being an artist now versus the life of being an artist then, I think will be really interesting to explore.
Well, cool.
So cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody who tuned in on the live stream. I promise we're going to get more involved with Q&A during the show. So we'll get a little better about announcing the live stream ahead of time.
Actually, we're looking for interns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've got one that's a potential that's going to work out, and that will help with the interactivity on the live stream.
Yeah,
is
we'll be able
having
to
someone
field
doing
questions while we're live streaming. We'll also do a little more pre-promotion of the live streams, since we sort of, at this point, just drop them on people and say,
Hey, we're live.
Tune in, we're live now. And so feel free to start engaging with the show a little bit more. We really want to hear from you guys and help build and improve our program. Also, just, you know, make the conversations we're having more meaningful. Feel free to reach out with recommendations, people you'd like to see on the show. I mean, we're open to everything. So please just bring it and get involved. So So again, thanks to everybody who tuned in on this. Also, everyone who will download this in just a few short hours when we publish it. And because we've got to get live today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Thursday at 2 p.m. So we got to get live.
Okay.
And so everybody who listened to this got the little sneak
I
peek.
thought it was Wednesday.
Yeah, everybody else gets to hear it in an hour, and I've got to go meet a furniture truck. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Later.